Listen up, an urgent message. The Dwas Council has been deposed. Insurrectionists are running amok in fandom.
Thank you, Giles. That is the news I'd been awaiting. Listen carefully. I have an edict to deliver. What I have to impart is of vital importance to all of you. Now that fandom is collapsing into chaos, none of you will be needed. This episode will be cancelled. Only I can impose order. I have control of the Podbean hosting service. To disregard my commands will be to invite summary deletion.
Oh, that's a shame.
On the other hand, since we're all here in the bunker, why don't we all watch a story anyway?
Yes, why not?
Well, surely there's no harm in that. Let's load the Blu-ray disc.
Oh, very well.
Oh, it's worse than I remember.
What's happening?
I think it's getting to us.
It's a limbo atrophier.
This story is elevating futility to a high art. There's nothing you can do to prevent the catharsis of spurious morality.
If they can make this monstrosity, it follows that we should be able to watch it and moan about it afterwards.
If we ever make it to the end.
Quick! Disconnect the Blu-ray player.
We can't switch it off without using the right remote control. And there are at least half a dozen here.
Then get out of here, quickly. Our lives depend on it.
Eureka! And you said it couldn't be immobilised.
What have you done?
Induced an anti-phase signal into the Blu-ray player. The whole session should reset.
You blundering imbecile! You triggered a ray phase shift that may amass a feedback into the Something Who bunker!
No!
It's too late!
Oops. Oh well, there's always the iPlayer. Anyone for a bracing glass of carrot juice while I find the spare telly? Welcome to the podcast where we take something old, a Doctor Who story from the original series, compare it with something new, one from the new series, and add something borrowed, that sketch, to make Something Who. Hello, I'm Richard, and we're back with Something Who podcast episode 115, and this time we're looking at two stories which introduce an unexpected Doctor. Spoilers. Initially, we'll look at the two-part Sixth Doctor story, which concludes the whole Season 23 story, The Trial of a Time Lord, also known as The Ultimate Foe, and later we'll examine 13th Doctor outing Fugitive of the Judoon, let's try that again, Fugitive of the Judoon from Series 12. And with me to decide whether these stories give you a nice surprise or a nasty shock, we have a fine panel hiding in plain sight. Starting with a timely return for writer, actor, and one of the founders of our podcast, Paul.
Yeah, thank you. Brilliant. Timely return. Yeah. Yes. Is it? Oh, good.
Excellent. And next we have science and astronomy writer. It's another of our originals. It's Giles.
Evening. Yeah, you don't get rid of me, it seems.
Well,
He's a true original, everyone says so.
Yeah, you've only dropped off twice during the course so far.
Yes, this is true. Yeah, I've been replaced by an AI replica.
And we have Lego enthusiast and recent Something Who omnipresent. It's Rick.
Well, it's great to be here. Wow, would I miss the Ultimate Foe for anything?
And finally, we tracked him down at Riverside Studios and begged him to return to the podcast. It's multi-talented 3D artist, writer, researcher, podcaster, telesnap animator, and co-creator of Dalek 63 to 88. It's Gav!
Hello, I'm back.
Hi.
Hey! Insert applause track here.
So for listeners of the podcast, because I am hoping to get this out relatively quickly. That was the point of this. But you never know when it will actually see the light of day. So just so you know, as listeners, we are recording this about 48 hours before the finale of the new series. So yeah, we're in the sort of gap between episodes 7 and 8 right now. That may not be particularly relevant to our discussion, but it might be. Who knows?
Oh,
Yes.
I guess it does mean that we have seen Joe Martin in this series.
This is true. Diegetic or non-diegetic? That is the question.
none.
Non, I assume, yeah.
I can't help you that one because I haven't seen that episode yet. Although you haven't spoiled it for me in case you're.
Oh, so,
I got way
okay.
way behind because I
haven't seen the last 10 minutes
such
of it.
Such a busy man, and I noticed that every week people were saying, "Quick, rush to your viewing medium of choice. You can't miss this episode. It's full of unexpected surprises." Every week they said that, so I had to skip over that one so that I could, on the assumption that the surprises the week after would be even bigger. So there you go. You've rekindled my intrigue by suggesting that there may be some ambiguity over whether it's diegetic or non-diegetic. I look forward to seeing what you mean by that. I'll have to look up the word first.
Do we think there's a reasonable certainty this will go out after Saturday?
Yeah, I think that would be a...
The only way it wouldn't is if he doesn't edit it, and I would have to have my name removed.
So I've done quite a lot of supporting work as a background artiste over the years. I'm in House of the Dragon and Protection and other random things. I'm very, very in The Crow Girl, which, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. You all right, Paul?
It wasn't that much of a euphemism.
I highly recommend The Crow Girl, not just because I'm in it, but yeah, all of the police scenes in the detective police station. I'm in all that. Anyway, the point is, it's not entirely the reason, but I did think there was a half a chance if one day I signed up as a supporting artist, I would end up in Doctor Who if I looked out for interesting looking casting calls coming out from Cardiff. I did actually do a bit in the series. What do we call these current ones? Series 1 finale.
I think it's
season 1 with Sutek.
Are we back on seasons
Apparently.
now? Okay.
Nobody knows. So I was in. I did a little running about scene in the streets, and I'm a blur in that, so it's not really worth mentioning. But I happened to get another little casting call from Cardiff, almost exactly. In fact, I think it was the 24th of May, 2024. So down I went, and I got clean shaven, and I got dressed up in a little unit uniform. And I think they were... I don't think they were reshoots. I think they were pickups. I think it was right at the end of the recording block, but it's for Saturday's episode. What's it called? I can't remember. The Reality War. Yeah. So at the time of recording this podcast, I have no idea whether I will be even visible, because my experience as a supporting artist is often you're just one pixel in the background. In House of the Dragon, I'm amidst I'm one of the few real corpses amidst a sea of mannequins. Which is really odd because you can't tell the difference between them, except that we're getting paid £200 a day and the rubber ones aren't. So I don't really see the point, but then who am I to question modern television production methods?
This is why all modern television costs.
Oh my goodness,
£1 billion now.
We most of us here in one form or another are deeply invested in old TV styles of production, and knowing how Doctor Who was made back in the day, where they would rehearse in a church hall with a dozen people for a week. So by the time they got in front of the cameras, they all knew exactly what they were doing and how they were going to play it and where everything was going to be blocked. So the day I did on House of the Dragon, we were all set up in this field. They'd created this little farming community. It's the one with a windmill in, if anyone's watching it. And basically there were two groups of people that come together across this field. They have an argument, and it's about to break out into a battle, and it cuts away, and then later it cuts back and everyone's dead. They filmed this moment of these two crowds of people, it's like two groups of 3 or 4 people coming together and having an argument. And they did, and I'm not exaggerating, they did it at least 20 times, and it took 2 or 3 hours of just repeating the action, and then they move the cameras, they do it again, they do it again. And then after we'd done this for so long, the director and the actors all had a chat, and they decided that they were going to do the scene slightly differently so that the confrontation was quieter to begin with, and then got more aggressive as they went on. And so everyone reset, and we did it again and again and again. So we did 20 takes of the second version that they wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just the fact there were 30, 40, 50 extras all pretending to be farmers in this field, but as far as the eye could see, there was, the food trucks and the assistant directors and everything else, all the sound people, the camera people, and everything just went on and on down the side of the field. Are you waving there, Paul? Are you waving to say don't draw attention to the fact you're waving? Oh. Anyway, it just blows my mind that I don't. Why don't they rehearse in a church hall? That's my question.
Yes.
I guess it's everything has become so expensive. You can't scale that back now without saying.
Richard Martin would have got it, nailed it in one take.
Anyway, sorry, that was all waffle. The point is, I may or may not be glimpsable in running about in unit headquarters, ducking and diving as explosions go off. I think I might be breaking continuity a bit because I spend a lot of time on one side of the room poking at my computer panel, and then I'm on the other side of the room running backwards and forwards behind the Vlinks as things explode.
How exciting.
I glimpsed the Bone Palace. We were in the holding area that we were in. They wheeled the Seal of Rassilon past us. So that was my first inclination that there might be. So when everyone kept going, I think the Rani's coming back, and I thought, well, I mean, I don't know it's the Rani, but there's something Time Lordy going on.
And then suspiciously someone wheels a 15-foot high Seal of Rassilon past.
Yeah, but I did see
there was subtle way.
Mrs. Flood lurking around. But yeah, it was a very enjoyable experience and a lot of fun. And their food's extremely good.
So are you now captain then, Gav? Do you have a unit name?
I will invent one and update my own TARDIS wiki page.
Excellent.
Ross Jenkins II.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to hopefully seeing your turn as a Dolly unit soldier.
I was very nearly very in it because there was one shot and they rehearsed it a couple of times where the camera starts full on my face.
Wow.
And then as the scene starts, the camera, everything's shaking, stuff's going on. The camera swings away from this tight zoom on me into the guy running into the room. And then the action continues, and they did it a couple of times, and then the director's like, "Oh, maybe we should just go with the guy. We'll start on the doorway instead, so he just comes straight in." And so I get all excited because I could see my face all big on the monitors, and then they were like, "Nah, we'll get rid of this face. We'll look at this door instead. That's far more photogenic."
There'll be an extended cut some point in the future.
I'll just put myself in with AI.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, thanks. I guess I'd say it's been a fun season so far. There's been some pretty good stories. I particularly enjoyed the one set in Lagos, was it? Nigeria?
Yep.
Yeah, that was a bit of a change of pace.
Yeah. That's the one that unfortunately, felt a bit flat to me. But...
Yeah, that was my least favourite. I actually turned it off after 10 minutes and had to give it another go the next day because I just didn't get it. It didn't make any sense to me.
Right. I was watching it with my daughter, so maybe that she kind of responded to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this series so far. It's been very watchable, and I don't think I almost feel like we haven't got to the final episode in too contrived a way. So I am really looking forward to Saturday.
Is Paul coming back?
Not in the finale, no.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll kick things off with the story, and he'll join us when he joins us. So, let's discuss The Ultimate Foe by Robert Holmes, Pib and Jane Baker, and probably fair chunks of Eric Saywood as well. Directed by Chris Clough. Yeah, I mean, inevitably, I haven't seen this since the late 80s. It's not since original. I've seen it since original broadcast. I would have had it off air on video and have watched it a few times, no doubt, in that kind of late 80s sort of era, but certainly not since 1990. I thought it'd be great to come back to it in this particular pairing, but maybe I should have watched it more recently, and then I wouldn't have been quite so enthusiastic.
I watched this one. Yes, I have a very specific memory of the original broadcast because I was appearing in school production of HMS Pinafore on that very happened to clash with. It was like we did it on about 4 or 5 nights. Very, very minor public school, had a bit of an old-fashioned tradition of doing productions of Gilbert and Sullivan, going back to the days when it was an all-boys school. There's a fair bit of dragging up in this version as well. Not for me. I played a strapping sailor in the chorus, but I do remember hanging on and going, "Hang on, it's overrunning." It's like, how can it be half an hour? Because I had to be there and holding on until the last possible moment, and dashing out the door. And I think Dad had the car running to get me out there for the last night of the
proms.
Last night of the proms. Yeah. And I'd have had it on VHS. I'd have had that bloody TARDIS tin. Rewatched it a few times off that.
Well, I watched it on broadcast too, and I've only really managed to watch Trial of the Time Lord as part of a big, long Doctor Who watch. It's never quite the one I plucked from my shelf to whisk through 14 lively episodes. So I probably haven't watched this for a few years.
Blimey. What are we saying?
Well,
yes, I watched it on broadcast, and I have no idea how many times I've watched it since, but more than once, and less than 10, probably less than 5.
Sucker for punishment.
I guess Gav's the only one of us who's young enough not to have fallen.
Well, only just. I got into Doctor Who that summer because I started watching my dad's VHS 1983 repeats. So, first Doctor Who I saw on broadcast was Time in the Rani. But I think I saw Trial of a Time Lord by pirating copies of Paul Jenkins' TARDIS tin VHS. I don't think I ever owned it. Yeah, hi Paul.
No,
hi Paul, if you're listening.
I certainly never bought the TARDIS tin. Good grief, no. Why would you upgrade your off-airs of this?
You see, I didn't have off-airs. It was before. I didn't have access to a VHS until after classic Doctor Who. I
mean, I have dipped into Trial of a Time Lord here and there over the years, but quite a lot of The Ultimate Foe was pretty unfamiliar to me. I saw there were bits that I vividly remembered, but if you told me there was a dragon in that, I would not have believed you. I have no recollection of that. Tis but a glimpse, but still.
I think it's very familiar to me, to the extent that just as I was about to put it on the iPlayer, I remembered I just think that the Series 23 Blu-rays had extended versions of every episode, so I went to check, and lo and behold, it does, which is very exciting. I haven't watched any of them, so I watched the extended versions of this, and I didn't really spot anything that I thought was news. So it can't have been very exciting. I forgot to check how long the second episode was. The first one was only about 26 minutes, so it can't have been much. But there you go. I also remember enjoying the book back in the day. I mean, it was back in the era when people were having a lot of fun with novelising the 2-part stories. I think it's probably the Pip and Jane book I enjoyed the most. I think I had some fun with it.
I ended up watching it on DVD because, as usual, I forgot that I forgot about having the Blu-ray sets. Dive for my DVDs, and I did watch the deleted scenes package they have on there.
So you can tell me what.
So, which literally took about 2 minutes. It was really just tops and tails of very, very minimal stuff. Like they spend a bit longer on tracking shots around Gladstone Pottery Museum before the Doctor gets zapped in there.
It's like the original 5 Doctor Special Edition. Lots of corridors. Good. Okay.
Yes,
I went for the DVD specifically over iPlayer, not least because the iPlayer interface is so terrible that it on mine just quite often loops infinitely. If I try to rewind it, I just get the same scene over and over again. But specifically, I started watching it about 20 minutes before we started recording, so I had to watch it on 1.5 speed, and it really zipped along, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, my main thought in watching it this time was, what on earth would a casual viewer have made of it? I mean, my daughter, who has not seen any of the rest of Trial of the Time Lord, or indeed I think any Colin Baker, sat with me watching this, and I did have to explain quite a few things. And I think I think in the end she just accepted that she was going to be bewildered, but then she was barely more bewildered than I was, and I fully understood what it was trying to do.
Did you not just clear the whole matter up by showing her the continuity announcement that, set you up for part 13 perfectly? Would you like me to read this out to you?
The Doctor is on trial for his life.
Yeah. Having defeated the Vervoids, the Doctor has concluded the presentation of his defence, with the Doctor's future lives at stake. The Valeyard has now charged the Doctor with destroying an entire species, a charge known as genocide. So I think that probably would have cleared it up for her, really.
Yeah.
Where do we begin? I was thinking about the fact that I don't think I've ever jumped into this story without having watched the rest of it first. So it was a fascinating experience just to get the wrap up of this story that had been, the mystery that had been teased many episodes before that I hadn't watched. And what I thought was interesting was I might at some point watch Mysterious Planet followed by these 2 episodes. Because I was struck by the fact that having sat through, what's the Sill one? It's gone from my brain. Mind Warp followed by Terror of the Vervoids, followed by the conclusion to this long ago series of questions. I'd always completely lost interest in what all the mystery of Ravelox was.
Yeah.
And counterintuitively, obviously I haven't watched A Mysterious Planet in many months or years, but weirdly, by not having watched irrelevant stories directly preceding it, that somehow made the link back to another story that I hadn't watched more palatable. Does that make any sense? Not really. But I thought that was quite a good wrap-up for a big... If you're telling me this is the season finale of a huge 13, 14 episode story arc, and you hadn't also been told that 8 episodes of it were completely irrelevant, then those 2, that's quite a big finale. The turn up at the Master and revealing the twist of the Time Lord secrets, and it's the first time I've ever watched it and not thought, I don't really care, I don't really remember Ravelox. It all seemed very inconsequential at the time. Let's move on. It's the first time I've really paid attention to that.
Yeah.
I wonder if watching it that way, I was going to say, helps with the problem I had with it, because I had sort of the opposite problem. I thought that all that exposition, is exposition the right word for wrapping something up? It feels like it's the opposite of exposition, but anyway, putting it at the beginning of the episode seemed very clunky to me. And really, if this was structured properly and paced properly, if that mystery was as important as the story seems to think it is, then you would want to give that some space rather than just wrapping up in a few lines. And then it moves immediately on from the Ravelox stuff to revealing who the Valeyard is, and that's a much bigger sin, because that's what the whole... I mean, arguably, the Ravelox stuff has nothing to do with Trial of a Time Lord, does it? Oh, well, except that... Does it?
No, that's a good question.
Well...
The only reason the Doctor is here is because the Valeyard has pushed to put him on trial, because the Valeyard wants something from the Doctor specifically, i.e. his lives. So Bob Holmes and Eric Saywood cooked up this mystery in the first story, and then, as you say, took their eye off the ball in the next 8 episodes. So maybe that's why it wraps up quickly, because they thought it was going to be more important, but maybe they thought this ongoing plot will go through the rest of the series. I don't know. But it is a bit...
I'm just trying to connect the dots in my head. So the High Council struck a deal that said the Valeyard can have the Doctor's lives if the Valeyard completes a show trial to get rid of the Doctor because the Doctor discovered the Time Lord's secrets
Did they say that?
on Ravalox. Yes.
Did they say that? Oh.
So
did they make it that explicit?
Yeah.
Right.
So all of the Matrix censoring is done because the Doctor had worked out what was going on and that Ravalox was Earth. Oh no, hang on, because he realizes Ravalox is Earth during the trial. It was the Time Lord. Oh no, it was Glitz. Who's? I can't remember. It's so long since I watched it.
But it's the Valeyard. It's the Valeyard who actually brings the whole Ravalox thing into the whole trial. I mean,
well, this is the thing that always has always been the bugbear that I've had is that they pick out the one, the one most incriminating bit of evidence that will bring, and they've used that as their first piece of evidence against the Doctor is let's watch this story in which.
Let's watch this story, which...
yeah. But I quite like the idea that Glitz and Diver were working for the Master, supposedly, I've forgotten about that bit. But I'm just looking at the transcript now.
Get on Chakotaya, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's when Glitz and Diver are going in through the subways, and Glitz says, do me a favour, Diver, the sleepers found a way into beep, beep, beep. The biggest net of information in the universe, or whatever they say it. So that's, if you're a Doctor Who fan, that's probably the fact that the Time Lords are sensitive.
They were trying.
They're obviously, yeah.
Because in those days they didn't have time to edit it. So if they needed to do a retake, they would just swear. But if the swearing didn't persuade them, they would just bleep it.
Yes.
I'm peddling misinformation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess it's there.
So if you jump to episode 13, see what the Master says about striking the deal about the Valeyard, because then the Doctor does his thing. He says about the sleepers and the Andromeda Galaxy.
I mean, if it does tie up, then I suppose I should apologise. But
I think
still,
no,
I'm not going to.
Down. I think you've let Pip and Jane down.
But it's still structured badly because if that was important, then it deserved more than just a throwaway explanation, and the Valeyard thing certainly deserved more than just the Master revealing it off the cuff. But and then what it seems to do is to rush into the end game, the exciting new end game. Get us out of the trial room and into this new scenario as quickly as possible. But of course, you could have done some of that exposition in the Matrix. You didn't have to fire through it all. Tell, don't show. You could have kept some of it back. You could have given it, revealed these answers to these mysteries, spread out throughout the last two episodes in the surreal environment, and I think that would have made a much stronger story. As it is, you tie a bow on one thing in the first couple of minutes. The next couple of minutes you introduce and resolve a new mystery that nobody was even expecting, and then move into a story that is essentially starting from scratch.
Could it be an amazing stroke of fortune, though, that it's happened that way around? Because ultimately everything written in episode 14 got jettisoned. So if Bob Holmes had saved everything up for his dramatic climax and that episode 13 had been treading water, then Pip and Jane would have been left to work out what the point of the Valeyard was and what the secrets of Ravalox were.
That's the point, isn't it? I mean, yes, if they hadn't revealed, does that mean they literally wouldn't have been able to tell them?
I suspect if that's the story we're told, isn't it? That they were...
Well, the interesting... Yeah, what I was going to say is the interesting thing is that's pretty much that scene is pretty much Holmes's last bit. He writes, at least according to the production notes, he basically writes everything up until the Valeyard does a runner was written by Bob, and then everything from there on, except for one scene back in the courtroom, is Saywood.
Until Pip and Jane take over, yeah.
Yeah, although obviously obviously Seward and Holmes had worked out. They roughed out this plan between them, so it was like Seward writing to the Holmes template from that point. So they'd worked out the thing. But it's interesting that happens to be.
It's funny you should say that because I made a note.
So it's the Master's.
Yeah, I was just saying I made a note when I was watching this that the sort of second half of the episode feels like somebody who's doing a Holmes greatest hits, who's watched it once and can't really properly remember it, because you've got bits of Talons of Weng Chiang, you've got bits of Deadly Assassin, and so on. It's got some of the same beats that you'd have got from Holmes, but it doesn't really feel authentically Holmesy.
Tell you what, though, the little glimpses of Victoriana made me really long for a proper. I mean, I know Mark of the Rani sort of is in that ballpark, but it doesn't have the sort of Victorian fog and cramped streets aesthetic that these little snatches in The Matrix have. I really love all that little scampering rats and smoky darkness. Because Mark of the Rani's fine, but it's very open. It's a very big open story, isn't it? With lots of sweeping vistas of Bliss Hill, which I went to last week for my birthday. Thank you.
But you're right, that Victorian London scene is effortlessly atmospheric, and the barrel jump scare is one of my real images of the whole Sixth Doctor era. Really, that's one of the things that absolutely stuck in my mind as a teenager.
It very little of this feels like Robert Holmes writing, doesn't it? I mean, it's in the first half, the bit he actually wrote, it's only really Glitz who really brings it to life. If he wrote all that exposition, then he obviously was not very pleased at having been lumbered with it. And then he
writes the scene with the Master gloating, like where the Master explains his motivation and setting them against each other. That's the only other bit that gets dropped in that's his. So
you've got Holmes writing that mostly doesn't sound like him. Then you've got Seward doing the greatest hits of Holmes in the second half. And then in episode 14, you've got Pip and Jane doing an even more sort of watered-down photocopy. But they do their best, and I think it's slightly better than I remembered at the last episode. The beach stuff, at least it moves on to a new locale, a new gimmick. There's several new gimmicks, aren't there?
I'm not a fan of dream sequency stuff.
No. It's a terrible cliffhanger because it's immediately undercut by the Doctor saying, I was never in any danger, Glitz, don't you understand? This isn't real. And then the fog drifts in, the nerve gas drifts in, and he says, oh, this is real, this will kill us. There's no explanation for why some things will and some things won't.
Yeah.
And really, I mean, you were talking about... I think the reveal of who the Valiant is should have come at the end of episode 13, and that would work in every scenario here because it would have survived from the first draft and then... I mean,
you could have seeded it nicely through that story, perhaps to throw forward a little to Fugitive of the Judoon, but there's a little clues that maybe the Valiant knows something that the Doctor knows, or a turn of phrase or something, and it just builds towards the climax of 13.
It's essentially virtually nothing for 12 episodes and then rug pull.
Yeah.
As much as I like the reveal in itself, though, the fact that the Valiant is the same person, potentially, as the Doctor, doesn't really have an impact once that reveal is made. It could have been just a reveal of another spectacular Time Lord supervillain, and in direct contrast to the story we're going to discuss later, which really makes good use of the interplay between the two. There's plenty of interplay between the Valiant and the Doctor, with no attempt by the Doctor to make sense of the consequence of this being one of him.
And the fact that the Valiant... Go.
Please don't have 5 of us on, Richard. It's a terrible idea. We're all really gobby.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, the fact that the Valiant is trying to kill the Doctor subverts, or rather diminishes, one of the few things that would have any impact, is that the Doctor is the Valiant's past. and therefore how he treats him affects him. But by virtue of the fact that he's setting out to kill him, and he's perfectly happy with that, and the consequences won't echo forward through time, again, it disconnects these two characters.
Oh, there's a lot of that, isn't there? That and the fact that he goes off with Mel before he's met her. It's like these people have no idea it's a time travel program. You could justify treating it this way, barely scratching the surface of the potential of the Valeyard, the whole Valeyard concept, if you're going to bring him back again in the future, which they should have done, but not if this is it. But there you go.
And the odd thing is that then, sorry, Paul, finish your.
No.
I was just going to say, okay, I was going to say the odd thing is that when construction-wise, the fact that Saywood then apparently, like, once they knew they were going to go to this fantasy factory Matrix environment, and then Saywood immediately, once he's saddled with writing the rest of it, he then invents the Popplewick character, and Popplewick's wasn't the Valeyard.
No. In
Saywood's version. Popplewick is an independent being, and it just feels like, you've just done this great big, surprise reveal, and then where are you going with the, then let's introduce some more.
I think that is precisely the area where the split between two different sets of writers who hadn't communicated is most obvious. Popplewick, I think, and Pip and Jane, they're at their best in the first after 2/3 of episode 14, where I sometimes have to play on a miniature tuba to consolidate my thoughts. They're the best in the early parts of 14, where it's just constantly moving forward. And what I wanted to say really about the Matrix is, and I may be wrong here, but I'm going to say it anyway. In the original classic Matrix episode with Tom Baker, I think it just keeps moving on from one scenario to another, like a dream. And famously in a dream, you can't go back. If you turn around, you won't see what you just left, because your brain, they just don't work that way. You just keep moving forward and there's no logic. The moment they go back to the Victorian pottery and the Popplewick is the moment it loses me, because it then starts to feel less like a hallucinatory or hallucinogenic. I couldn't decide which to say, give you both. Dreamscape, and more like a real location, and it then becomes small scale. It's makes the Matrix less intriguing. It undermines the point of setting it in the Matrix in the first place. So yes, they keep. So when it's moving forward, we've got the Victorian Popplewick, we've got the beach, we've got the fake out when the Doctor thinks he's back in the court, but he isn't. New ideas.
Nice.
Once it goes back to the pottery, it all falls apart because A, it's repetitive. B, the Popplewick, the whole, alleged mystery over the identity of J.J. Chambers and Popplewick being the Valeyard is a massive It just falls completely flat because it wasn't supposed to be a mystery. They're just desperately, 3 a.m, whatever, being hosed down with whiskey and coffee by Graham.
And also that sort of tedious mechanical bit of plotting is so, like you're saying about move forward with things in the Matrix, but not only do they move back, but then it distills down into this really tedious little subpar detective scene where they're rummaging around in this office as if it's a real office with real clues to be found. And it becomes more boring because it started out, it's in this weird universe. And they're looking at pieces of paper going, I found his hit list and all of what. Who's imagining that and putting it in the Matrix for them to find?
I'd like to know how quickly they had to write this, because it almost feels like they literally did it in overnight, like City of Death, and ran out of steam. Because they do understand what they're supposed to be doing for the first 2/3, and to lose it at the last minute, and then they throw too much in. The list, the fact that he makes a list, which makes no sense anyway. The fact that the Valeyard has 2 plans to get the Doctor's lives and also to kill the High Council for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
The fact that it's as mundane as the fact that it's a big bomb which happens to be in the screen behind the court. So the mundanity of it just being the physical proximity is just nonsense. It takes all the fun out of the Matrix.
We've had this, like you're saying, they've front loaded the two-parter with this big reveal about the nature of the Time Lord conspiracy and the consequences to Time Lord society, and then the Valiard is like a 1-2 sucker punch of not only is Time Lord society undermined, but the very worst person in the room is actually the Doctor, and it's peaked at that point. And then episode 14, it's just new plot elements, like you said. The sudden new strands introduced, and they are so. I'm making exactly the same point that Paul just made with slightly different words, and I realised because I was about to say how mundane it was.
They're
and then I thought,
underwhelming
I've just
and
heard someone say that it was mundane.
It's just really tricky because and they absolutely got a, it's a writing assignment from hell, and and they did it in 3 days over the weekend or something, didn't they?
I was trying to say something nice about them because nobody ever does.
To be
the fact
told,
that they started off.
Here's episode 13. We can't tell you anything about episode 14, and there's a BBC lawyer in the room with us, watching JNT to make sure he doesn't give away anything,
Naughty old Eric.
say anything about how this was,
Should have learnt Morse code and just been tapping it out on the desk.
Can I complain some more? I don't think
Go
I've
on.
done it enough. I spent most of the time thinking how I could rewrite it. I always do that a bit because I'm an arrogant bugger. But how about this? I don't think there's any need to have Mel brought to the court at the beginning with Glitz. She doesn't contribute anything. Glitz turns up and does the wrap up of Mysterious Planet. She doesn't really do anything until she jumps into the Matrix. Was a whole episode of just standing about.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, you're just looking at. They're constantly missing a trick. I think if the Doctor had come across her in the Matrix, that would have been a nice mystery. We know there's the whole point in the fact that he hasn't met her yet. So she pops up. Is she real? Is she not? That could have been a bit of fun. You don't need to invent nonsense about. I mean that. I mean, yes, Saywood invented the Dickensian stuff because he loved Talons of Weng Chiang. It's sort of like it's got that Dickensian Clark atmosphere, and I think it's a sort of fantastic take on the circumlocution office, really, or the bureaucracy and everything. But it should really just been a sort of a one hurdle to get through, to get past the bureaucracy, and coming back there again, exploding quills as fat suits, and as you say. Hit lists. Oh, and then at the end, I mean, it's just, sorry. This isn't their fault, but it's just the fact that the point where the plot is the most mundane, when the Doctor and the Valiant have their final conversation, the fact that it's in the dreariest set we've seen, the least interesting part of this amazing Victorian pottery, some sort of crappy workshop with some disco lights in a cupboard, is...
So, the disco
help.
lights, the Maison machine... Is that like a real thing? Is that a real piece of technology that's hidden in the Matrix, or is that just imagined like everything else in the Matrix? It's Matrix, just so incongruous as a piece. It reminds me of the at the end of the Mind Robber when it turns out that it is actually just a big computer that's behind everything somehow.
Well, it's why that sort of timidity where you want to do a fantasy story, but you feel you've got to make it science fiction, and then you end up ruining it by bringing it down to something mundane like a computer. It's why I like the new era so much, because having decided to say that the universe is now full of magic, he's run with it and made it the point of every other story.
But it's,
I admire that.
Yeah, it's not even a computer though, is it? I mean, it's 2 bits of comms, isn't it? I mean, the megabyte modem, if there is such a thing, is a communications link, and a maser is also, I suppose, a means by which you can get information from one thing to another. But the
maser is
it's 2 kind of concepts from our world, which they're trying to transport it into here to make it sound kind of sciencey and exciting, when in fact it's
because Pip and Jane had a scientific advisor on hand, didn't they? Did I call it a maison before rather than
yes, you did, yeah.
Like a free maison?
Oh, did they? Okay. Oh, did you? Right.
I'm just going to hang lampshade on
it. I've never been quite sure. Watching it this time, I had a vague feeling that Mel is wrong. It's not a megabyte modem. That's just her attempt to understand it, and the Doctor kindly corrects her. That is right. Okay.
Yes.
Right. So, Richard, what you said.
I mean, how can she tell the board of it? How does she know it's throughput just from looking at it?
14.4.
Yeah.
We think.
Yeah, it's the frequency she can sort of interpret the noises and yeah.
There'll be a sticker on it, like mine has Intel Core i3 sticker on it. We just didn't see it on telly.
Yeah.
But like a maser is a really low-powered laser, basically.
A low-powered
it's
laser,
like-
right? Well done.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a microwave amplification,
Oh my god.
and microwaves have less energy than light, so...
Do
Do
they
they?
ever mention?
Why
on
does my
screen-
microwave heat things up and a bulb doesn't then? I've got you there.
well,
Don't ask
frequency
me.
and...
Telling me the Earth's round next.
It does heat up my bowls, actually. I don't know what's... Maybe there's something wrong with it. Do they ever mention on screen that Mel is a computer programmer in any of her 6 stories? Because having just written her introductory story, and I presume you haven't read J&T's amazing character sketch, the computer program from Mel P's Pottage, you could have given her something to do if it was a computer. But
Well, and apparently she doesn't know who the master is, which undermines the one bit of the character sketch that existed that it was
I'd
to do with
forgotten
unless
that.
yeah.
fantastic.
Well,
She
the
was
whole
supposed to admit that it also in a master story.
the Inquisitor doesn't seem to know who the master is when he first appears.
No. Good
Either.
away, yeah.
And then by episode 14, part 14,
Maybe she's one of those
she does
judges
know.
from Private Eye. What is a Beatles?
I mean, it's entertaining, obviously, listening to us trying to piece together the way this was written. But the reality is, it was just one big unholy mess from the start, wasn't it? And you wouldn't ever advise somebody to even go into part 1 without a view of how that story arc ended as a collective to share with the writers. In many ways, the marvel is 13 and 14 exist at all in anything remotely a coherent way. And it does kind of do a good job of tying up some of the continuity of the 3 stories before. They all get a reference one way or another within the story. I am actually drawn to this idea that, well, it could work really well as a 4+2 style 6-parter. And if I'm feeling brave, I might watch it in those conditions in the near future. But fundamentally, not many things get me angry about Doctor Who behind the scenes, but the fact that they had such a long time to plan for this series, that there was so much at stake. They absolutely, well, they look like they're paying no respect to the series at this point. And, there are enjoyable things about it, but it's tinged by the fact of they were just prattling about, weren't they?
It's funny though, isn't it, that if you think about season 6, the War Games is written because they've got no time and everything's falling apart and they've got themselves into a mess, and yet they come up with something that's really rather good in the circumstances. And as you say, in this circumstance, we've had 18 months, well, certainly a year anyway, to get all this stuff together, to have a bunch of scripts, and somehow we've managed to find ourselves in a worse state than we were in season 6.
According to Big Finish, there seem to be a couple of dozen stories hanging around. There's, we all know about the original 6 from the abandoned season 23.
Yeah.
But then Big Finish seem to think there's twice as many of those. And then there are several abandoned stories for the trial, which is something we haven't talked about. I mean, saying how it's a miracle it makes any sense at all, and also the fact that the middle 2 stories don't seem to contribute anything. Well, they're the 2 where... Giles, you're the researcher, or Rick,
Oh,
somebody
God, no.
or Gav, actually anybody. But I mean, how many? There's Children of January, isn't there? Something about.
God.
Hang on. Anyway, there's definitely several options for both the Mind Warp and the Vervoid slot. So, if they couldn't get that pinned down, it's not surprising they didn't try to thread any ongoing arcs through those 2. But they should have done. They should have done. It's not that difficult. It really isn't.
I can answer a previous question to a very small extent. In Time and the Rani, Mel says, computers are my speciality. That's all you get.
Yeah. I mean, they made a point out of Perry's botany and Mark of the Rani. So, I mean, say what you like about Pip and Jane. They did their research, by which I mean reading the back of the fag packet that John Nathan Turner lent them.
I mean, I suppose the only thing you can say about Mel and Glitz turning up together in this is that it's at least a forerunner for the way they disappear in Dragonfire.
Oh,
True. I forgot it paired them off twice. Yeah.
Which is the first time I thought of that, was seeing it in this.
well, there's another missed opportunity.
I was just going to say... Oh, hang on. No, that can't work.
Good point.
Just thinking, could this be Mel and... Yeah, no, but they introduce each other. They introduce themselves to each other. They haven't been kidnapped from Iceworld at the end of...
Well, that would have been good.
Coming back to things about the writing and Pip and Jane having to vamp it and introduce new plot elements. One interesting thing is they both did sort of settle on there being a sort of assassination plot / threat to the High Council, seemingly independently.
Oh.
But because of all the time vent stuff from the abandoned Sayward episode 14, with the Valiard materialises his TARDIS around a time vent, which will have catastrophic ramifications if it's left open for too long. But the interesting thing, I'm only looking at Shannon Sullivan's website here, although he's drawing on things like complete history and various bits and pieces. I hadn't actually realised that the Valiard actually has an interesting motivation in the original, in that they depict him as being an old man afraid of dying, which would have been far more explicit about, and that he's trying to blackmail the Time Lords into giving him the Doctor's remaining regenerations.
Yeah.
In some form, which actually I thought, that's quite interesting.
I think I always assume when I think back on the story that is what he wants, like Mordred Undead. But of course it isn't, is it? He never says anything remotely that kind. He just says he wants the Doctor
never
dead.
really thought about that.
He wants the Doctor dead because he what? Oh, why does he?
Well, they do say he'll be granted the Doctor's remaining regenerations, but they don't make it. They don't make it very explicit that the Valiard is like
He says something in episode 14. The Master doesn't want the Valiard around because he's more of a threat than the Doctor, because he's as clever as the Doctor, but without his morals. Yeah, that all makes sense. But look at the script. Tell me what the Valiard says.
He doesn't want the Master doesn't want the Valiard around because he's stepping on his territory. I'd have thought. There's only one room. There's only room for one renegade Time Lord in the Masters. I mean, he's fed up with the Rani by the time he gets to the end of Mark of the Rani, isn't he? So yeah, he doesn't need the Valiard on his turf as well.
One little small, very pedantic footnote that you can get a crowbar into if you're interested in Doctor Who lore. I noticed that the line was that the Valiard is between the Doctor's 12th and final regenerations. Yeah. And fans, obviously, until relatively recently, took this to be between 12th and 13th. But now we know the Doctor's final regeneration is somewhere in the realm of 60, 70, 1,000, we don't know.
Everything has changed so much since then. We all used to take it so seriously. Don't waste a regeneration. Everything's got to tie up. We've got to know every little tiny detail of every crack in the Doctor's unseen past. And now, it's all a free for all. We're gonna have fun with it. Doctors from the future. I don't know why they don't have more Doctors from the future popping in. But anyway, yes, wasn't it originally supposed to be the 13th? And they changed it. Somebody had cold feet, and they changed it from literally the Doctor's final regeneration to between
to
12
obfuscate.
And final. That's a lucky choice of phrasing. Well, I suppose there's. I wonder if the Valiard can regenerate. I mean, it's an interesting concept.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure one day, if we wait long enough, once we've got the meddling monk out the way, and Drax and whatever, I think we'll get the Valiard back again.
Yeah, so this afternoon when I was doing a bit of gardening, I decided to listen to Big Finish's trial of the Valiard.
Yeah.
To see if that cast any light on any of this. I mean, it's a fun...
Did you write that, Paul?
No,
you didn't. You didn't bother.
It's a fun return to the court and the characters of season 23, but it doesn't really give you much on the Valiard, except, I guess, to suggest that he isn't able to regenerate, and that's, I guess, part of the reason why he's wanting the Doctor's other lives. Although, as you say, quite how that is going to work, because you'd think it would just mean that he suddenly no longer exists. But anyway, I suppose we just have
Oddly enough, Gav, I know you're joking, but I did write for the Valiard a bit, and I'd forgotten, so thanks for reminding me. They did a set called The Sixth Doctor, The Last Adventure, and it was 4 stories set throughout his time. The first 3 were set throughout his era, and the last one was supposed to be his final story, which they had to badger Colin Baker into recording. Now, what the hell?
Why didn't he want to? Because it got him a better send-off, from what I remember listening to it.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously he didn't literally think that if he recorded his final story, that they wouldn't let him do anymore. But he always talked in interviews as though somehow it was more open-ended.
It was a second
he joked about how he
finality.
was still the Doctor because you hadn't seen him regenerate. But that's just a convention joke.
Oh, I see.
Not sure. Or maybe it's deep in his soul he thought it would hurt too much to record it. But
it would be good if there's another sort of war Doctor, missing Doctor discovered between the 6th and 7th Doctor, and it looks like Sylvester McCoy in a curly wig, because that would make a lot of sense of Time of the Rani.
Harpo is the Doctor.
Yeah.
Although, if we're going to go down that route, the David Bradley Doctor is a bit like that mid-generation regeneration first Doctor.
Yeah, it's unsettling.
Possibly. While we're on the subject of Colin Baker, there's no doubt in my mind he was throwing himself into the role, and he's pretty much the only actor, being very cruel, that comes out of that 2-parter with much credibility. I think he believes it, he conveys it, he does a great job under really, really difficult circumstances. So, hooray for Colin.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, my only thing on top of that I'd say is that James Bree, after his efforts in the War Games, does he toned it down a bit here.
Is he in Full Circle as well?
Yes. Yeah,
where's his fruitiest performance? Is it the War Games? I feel like he did.
The War Games is so weird. It's the weirdest performance I've ever seen in anything.
Funny fella. Oh, they don't make him like that anymore, do they? I wonder what he used to do in Rep, though. I mean,
The whole thing in the War Games, like he's reading from an auto cue that isn't going fast enough. It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
Well, apparently there was quite a bit more for the Keeper to do in earlier drafts, and he was actually a bit annoyed that some bit nuts.
Of 14, or do you mean in the original 14, or the? Because the only thing I really remember
for the original 14, because I guess he would have been contracted
on
the basis of here's the outline of what's happening, and then that was the thing that they were stuck. They were in rehearsals and doing with half a script, and suddenly probably having had stuff snatched away from underneath them.
Yeah. So, do we know if any of the actors ever saw it? Who cares? Don't tell me. The only thing I really remember is people saying that, and I think it was actors mainly saying that the original replacement script for episode 14 was even longer, like 40 minutes or so, and I think maybe Tony Selby was lamenting the loss of lots of great banter between him and the Master, and I guess they got all the jokes out. I was hoping to see some of that, you see, on the extended version, but it got cut. It never got filmed.
No.
I like the failed hypnotism moment in the TARDIS.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
Yes, he's good value, Glitz. I did think, and I may be wrong about this, I haven't watched Mission Impossible? Mysterious Planet for a long time. Although I did coincidentally watch a loud American woman reacting to it on her sofa.
Oh, God.
Yeah, she...
Why would you...
What, Mission Impossible? Or...
Why would you put yourself through that?
I don't know. I just like... I don't know. I have a lot of spare time. So anyway, it's fresh in my mind. I'd forgotten how Glitz has a much harder edge. Certainly in the first half of Mysterious Planet, she wants to kill the Doctor, get him out. But the performance, I think, is the thing that tip me off. It's a lot cuddlier as soon as he arrives in part 13, and I don't know if that's and that's still Bob. So maybe out of the context,
Bob.
He becomes my mate Bob. Yeah, he becomes much more the archetypal Bob Holmes, garrulous scamp. So, yes, people often say he was watered down in Dragonfire, but I think it starts here. That's my hot take.
Is it in the book of Dragonfire, the novelisation, where we discover that?
No.
What is that in? Is that a New Adventures?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
I think it's in a.
What are we talking about?
You tell him, Paul.
It's something unsavoury had occurred between Ace and Glitz on Iceworld, isn't it? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah.
But I don't. I mean, it's possible he snuck that in. Ian Briggs did seem to like giving. No, hang on. No, it wasn't her. It was the two evacuees in Fenric, wasn't it?
Well, I really liked the Master's Victorian TARDIS. I don't think we got to see that enough, and I'm not sure I'd ever even noticed it before.
Was that a prop? It's bloody enormous.
It's a great question.
Well,
I don't think it was nicked from a
it
park.
was no, it was a specially built prop. But
Good heavens.
funny enough, I was in Manchester a few weeks ago, and I can't remember what the park or square was called, but one of the main central squares, there's a great big statue of Queen Victoria, and I thought, is that the one? I was looking at that and thinking, is that the one they copied for? She's sort of sitting there on her throne.
Did you just say that was a full-size prop?
Legs somewhat splayed, a bit like a nan who's showing you her. Unfortunately, showing you too much of her underwear.
Did you say it was a full-size prop?
Yeah, apparently.
Good lord. Good lord.
They should have spent the money on the denouement, building a better prop for the Mason Megabyte modem.
Well, yes, yeah. And having also just spotted the dragon, I'm now wondering whether the dragon is the same. Was the dragon's head from Talons?
Mind of Evil.
Yes, yeah.
Oh! I thought it looked more like. Oh, have you got a better picture of it, or are you just looking at?
No. I'm just
on screen. I thought it looked like the Magma Beast re-sprayed.
Yeah, that's possible.
You only see it for a quarter of a pixel.
Yeah.
I didn't like the fact that they walk into the Matrix. I know this is a very pedantic conceptual thing, but Matrix was a computer you got plugged into. You had a body outside and a brain body inside, and it was all fake. And now there's a little cabinet. You can just walk into the Matrix, and your whole body goes into this computer, and then your body becomes a thought or something.
I was going to bring that up when we were talking about whether or not the bomb, I'm just going to call it the bomb, the
mega bomb,
is real or not, a physical.
Well, the Master's apparently got his TARDIS
because
in there, hasn't he?
the original Matrix, nothing's real. The Doctor is just imagining himself in there. Now we've got real bodies, presumably going through some sort of space conversion. But
a megabyte or some other bandwidth based system.
I mean, look, if you can create anything in the Matrix, then you could create a super weapon that is better than anything you could create physically. So why? There's another missed opportunity. Why create something that... I know it wasn't supposed to look shit. I don't imagine they put it in the script. Mel opens the cupboard. Room is flooded with disco lights.
I mean, there's something in that. So the Matrix is purely imagined, and it's dangerous if you're in there, and your body can die if your body outside can die if you die in the Matrix. That was in Deadly Assassin, right?
Yep.
So maybe there's something in the idea that they have found a way to lift things out of the Matrix, so you can create terrors in the Matrix, and the new plot development is now you can export them. You go file save as megabyte modem file system export superweapon dot tiff and then you print that out, and then it's real.
Brackets file, brackets use this one.
Okay. So we extend this, and we actually make the Matrix an important part of the story. Maybe we cut an episode each off Mind Warp and Vivus. I don't know. I don't care about the details, but Oh, I had it. Oh, no, there we go. There's so many things you could do. Mel is created by the Matrix. That's more
You
interesting.
are wearing a bathrobe. Sorry, carry on.
That's more.
Before you turned up,
secrets.
I was conjecturing
People
how you turned up.
People have no idea what I look like, let alone.
Sorry, carry on.
No,
Mel is created by the Matrix. That's more interesting than any of her temporal shenanigans. The Doctor meets her in the Matrix. Is she real, isn't she? She's never met him before. That becomes part of the story.
You could see her personality being assembled, but with files being dragged and dropped into a boring folder.
She could be the equivalent of the recorder in the Three Doctors. She could be the only... Anyway, who cares? There's 1,000 things you could do with it, but no, we get exploding quills. Onslow in a fat suit.
Rick, you wanted to make a
Nice
observation?
The only thing on my list is less about the script, but more about there are fun moments that kept it ticking along for me. We talked about the Statue of Victoria, but I quite like the Beach House TARDIS, and quite taken by the entry into that world at that point. I think for me that the Victorian scene, like I say, worked really well, and it was the one of the few times that I thought musically there was an impact into that episode with the kind of barrel organ and the kids singing. There was a real sense of let's create that atmosphere. I did like the Valiard beach pop video type bopping from one place to the other while he was talking to the Doctor.
I like that
I think that was one of the few attempts really to take us into that Matrix style fantasy world. The rest, as we've been saying, just plays out in a very kind of dull, linear Earthworld kind of a way. But at least they made a bit of effort there, and it was quite fun, and it was visually interesting. All that charging about in the trial room in terms of how did the Valiard actually escape the courtroom without anyone noticing? The subtle trippy up of Mel by the keeper felt comical under the circumstances. So there are these little things going on that, as I say, stop it being absolutely
she has her revenge when she needs him in the key of Ascalon.
Yeah. So, look, I'm never quite going to be persuaded this is Doctor Who at its best, but I think on this watch, there were things that, kept me chuckling, kept me engaged, kept me sitting there to the end.
Yep. I always hope I'll like it more than I remember liking it, and I never do. But it's not the worst. Is it?
I like, lots of things in concept. I like, I like the idea of the Valiard as the Doctor and where that might lead. As we've said before, it doesn't lead anywhere, and we don't get another opportunity to explore it later on, which is a shame. And yeah, it feels like, I mean, as you say, it does at least make an attempt to sew up this sort of interminable season of tedious court scenes in some way. So you have at least got that with it. So yeah, there's a lot that it sort of comes out in credit despite being not a great pair of episodes. It's just that, how did we get here? How did we get to this point? That's the problem, really.
It did remind me of the Daleks' master plan in this structure of like you start a story off and then you tread water for the whole of the middle, and then you wrap it up at the end, and you really hope that everyone still remembers Kemble and the Daleks at the end. And every now and again you mention the Daleks are still after them to remind the audience.
Good point. Yeah. But perhaps the worst sin actually in this script, and it's got nothing. It's a fifth actor on it, which is Nathan Turner, who decides that he wants to show that Perry hasn't died after all. And he managed to upset at least two people, well, three including me. So he upset Nicola Bryant, who had put her all into, I guess, an emotional last scene in Mind Warp. But I also had the opportunity in 1986 to chat to Philip Martin at a convention, and I asked him what he thought about the fact that they'd changed the ending, and he wasn't. I mean, he wasn't going to be terribly bitter about it, but he did say it was annoying, I guess, that he'd written this to have a particular impact at the end, and then to have it sort of revised several weeks later in another story was irritating.
I don't quite know whether they mention it twice either. While we're on the subject.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still, it's a good job they did because it enabled us to have them to make such use of Nicola Bryant in later years. When she should have been in that church hall with the other companions because Mel was last seen in space, just like Perry. So why couldn't they both be back? So stick that in your pipe, Christian. Don't smoke it. Just stick it in your pipe for a rainy day. Giles,
Yeah?
you were going to say something.
Was I? No, I don't think I was.
You were. You were starting to say something, and I steamrolled you.
Oh, no,
immense-
nothing.
No, that's my trick. It was something. You don't flap your mouth for no
No,
reason.
it really wasn't. It was. Problem is, it's way out of context now. It's only that I think the only thing I was going to say was that I noticed that Sayward also, for his version of episode 14, also had an illusory Mel in the Matrix.
What?
As a trap for the Doctor.
Oh, well, there you are then. Great minds. No, hang on, I won't finish this then.
But I guess it's only you've got this basic setup. There's only so many. You've got this setup, these characters, and these locations, and within the rules of the Matrix and the weird stuff you can do. I guess there's only so many remixes and ideas that you'll come up with.
If that was an addition to a real Mel outside the Matrix, then I'd take back my comment about great minds because that's rubbish. That's just an extra bit of padding. It needs to be.
It was in addition. It was the same as at least from what I read.
That's rubbish.
It's essentially the same as what Pip and Jane do. Really.
Camber Sands doesn't look much like the Chase though.
Oh, is that where it is? Is the okay? I was about to say, is it Dungeness? Because I had this feeling that I'd read that the Master's little beach cabin is. It's not Dungeness then. Okay.
Since we mentioned Camber
Sands, it's not Derry Jarman's.
No, that's what I was thinking. Well, it could be next door.
I hate to be that guy.
Yeah.
I don't. I've made a career out of trying to be that guy. Just a small point of order on the previous podcast. You mentioned that you thought the Savages might have been the first location work for an alien planet, but it was Camber Sands for the Chase.
Of course.
I did caveat it with
Soz.
I did caveat that.
Main cast. Yeah. Main cast.
I did caveat that with somebody's going to come along and.
Yeah, Soz. It was me screaming at the veering all over the road as I was listening, shouting at the podcast.
Lovely. I'm glad I had that effect.
Sorry about that.
Camber Sands, Gladstone Pottery Museum, Rye Harbour Nature Reserve, BBC Television Centre. That's a very thorough list. I just asked AI.
At least one of those four will be untrue.
Yes.
Rye Harbour Nature
Well,
Reserve.
Gladstone Pottery Museum. You can see it in daylight on the Pottery Throwdown, of course.
Oh,
on
yeah.
Yes.
Of course.
On the what did you say?
On the Great Pottery Throwdown. That's where they do that from.
Have we got anything else to say about this?
I think the only thing is I'd like a show of hands to who enjoyed the trial scenes in French and Saunders more than Charles Hamlin.
Oh, good Lord.
Well, I can see where you're going with that, but unfortunately, even as a great fan of French and Saunders, I find that sketch interminable and unfunny and appalling. I'm not surprised they cut it out.
Yeah.
So
that trial set was cursed, wasn't it? Nobody could make it work.
I mean, trial episodes just generally don't work. You have to have such a skill in writing to make a trial-based drama really engaging.
Yeah.
What did you say, Paul?
I said, is that a challenge?
Yeah. Have a go.
Well, I mean, if you look at
what's the best witness for the prosecution? Don't say 12 Angry Men. It's witness for the
I don't know. I mean, don't know.
Good.
I've never seen one. I've never seen a film. I've watched the Crotons. I've watched the Crotons about 14 times, but I've never seen 12 Angry Men. Sorry.
I've seen the golly,
The Hancock version.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Every time my girlfriend says, how can you not have seen this film? I'm like, you have not seen Wrath of Khan. You cannot criticise me.
You're supposed to say The Godfather, because being a bloke. But I gather
Has that got trial scenes in? I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Brilliant. Are we going to take a moment and come back and have a go at Fugitive of the Judoon?
Why not? We've got nothing else to do.
So,
Right.
Okay, well, look, in podcast land, we're going to leave you now for a little while, and we'll be back with the second half of this. But for the rest of us, it's just a quick 5 minutes, and then we'll be back talking about Fugitive of the Judoon, which I still can't say.
Au revoir.
Toodles.
He's getting all professional now. We've passed 100 episodes. He's got actual outros for the.
Right. Well, it being 21:42, shall I clap us in, and then we can get on with this farrago.
Yes.
There's 5 of us. This is going to be an epic.
Yeah.
Too much. Too
Yeah.
many. Well, I've got
Yeah, it
nothing
is too
to
much.
say.
I didn't know there were 5 of you.
Yeah.
What happened?
5,
Shall I dip out? I'll
4,
go to bed.
3,
3,
2,
2,
1.
1.
Well, that was immaculate timing.
Semi-plausible.
Was Charles frozen, or did he not
Semi-plausible.
clap?
Oh, he's frozen. What is it? You'd think he lived in, I don't know, the Hebrides or something.
Yeah. It's a bit like that.
If we clap again, he might reappear.
Oh, he's gone.
Oh,
You've
much
attained your wish of having fewer people. It's like Wish World.
I didn't.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't realise I had that power. And you know that my cup of coffee has just gone through the desktop and shattered on the floor. What a pain in the ass.
That was very good acting, because I thoroughly
I
believed
got that
you.
reference. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there.
You slithered out of existence.
I slithered out of existence
Yeah.
again. It may just be a running. That may be a running theme. But oh, great. Okay. So now it doesn't want to talk to the hotspot on my phone. Right. Okay. Well, I'll live with the other one, and if I come and go from things, then I'll endeavour to. Hopefully, it won't be when I'm.
It's going to be
mid-sentence.
very Three Doctors-ish, but it's fine.
I think so. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I'm recording. So
Brilliant.
That's good.
Well, you have the first line in the sketch. Did you clap, or did you miss us?
I didn't
right,
clap,
okay,
no,
right.
sorry,
Okay, here we go.
I wasn't
Here
here
we
for
go.
the clap.
It's very kind of you not to give me two.
You said, "Shall we clap?" And with that, the screen went blank. And
Another second clap. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's a bit like a shot in the dark, isn't it? My watch just stopped. Anyway. You've got the first line anyway when you're ready to.
Yeah, and I know I have. Sorry, I just trying to find the script amongst my many open windows. So channel my inner Jimmy Bree here.
Great.
Do you know, this will startle you, but it sometimes takes me a full day to record and edit 20 minutes of narration for one of my videos.
Yeah.
A mystery as yet unsolved.
Richard, I was impressed that you put the emphasis on the word "make" in if they can make this monstrosity on the second run, because even though you wrote it, you put the emphasis on in the wrong place the first time round. I don't mean to be picky. It's just, you know. Well, I do.
Well, I mean, I kind of wrote it. I mean, at least it was at least 75% Pip and Jane.
Oh well, that explains everything.
Insurrectionists are running amok in fandom. Sorry, I'll just give you a clean one of that. There's a boo in
Right. Bye.
it. Right. Everyone's gone blurry.
Okay. Initially, we'll look at the 2-part Sixth Doctor story, which concludes... let's try that again.
I watched From Hell the other night again, and there's a bit where one of the old ruffians, he kicks the door in, and he just sees all the women, and he just his entry line is 4 bitches. So I did consider that as a, but I decided not to. I felt it was in poor taste.